Hi guys and welcome to Horologique. Today we are going to be reviewing the little Tissel Submariner homage, and right next to it is the watch that this one is homaging, the beautiful Rolex 126610 LV Lunette Verte Submariner. I can tell you right away that this watch is not on the level of this one, neither should it be for 5% of the price. However, it is competing against the likes of Saint Martin, Cronos and others, here represented by the Saint Martin SN017G. Tissel was one of the first companies to homage Rolexes, years before Saint Martin and the other Chinese companies came into the game or were even born. Ever since, the fight has been fierce, with these new Chinese companies always proposing more for always less money. In such a harsh environment, what can Tissel do? Does it still offer a competitive watch? We're going to see that right away. Let's talk about dimensions here, and we've got a diameter of 40 millimeters. We've got a height of 12.8 millimeters. We've got a log-to-log of 47.5. We've got an end-link-to-end link, a pretty large end-link-to-end link of 53.1, a classic log width of 20, and the bracelet tapers from 20 millimeters to 16 and back to 18.3 at the clasp. On the wrist, the Tissel looks good, but those end links, even though they angle downwards, do protrude a bit, and you see that on the profile shot. See how they jut out a bit too much. Nothing too ugly, but still to be noted. Here's a wrist roll. Given the beautiful slim movement this watch is housing, the Miyota 9015, I just wish that they had made it a bit thinner. 12.8 is not too bad, but with that Miyota in there it could have been much thinner. Also, the end-link-to-end link dimension is much too large for no apparent reason. For comparison's sake, the Starbucks Submariner, which is a 41mm in diameter watch, has a smaller end-link-to-end link of 51.2mm. The dial is piano black, very well done, with a pretty big and bold Tissel lettering on top and a quite small in comparison automatic right underneath. At the bottom of the dial you've got the model, so the Marine Diver, and water resistant to 660 feet or 200 meters. You've got what is called a maxi dial here, with those big numerals that hold a pretty big amount of lume. We will see the lume video afterwards. The hands are your typical Mercedes hands, and they are pretty well done, with only a very small amount of debris here and there. The more striking feature on this dial, compared to your classical Submariner and your Submariner homages of course, is the fact that you do not have a cyclops on top of the date. Just like on the vintage versions of the Sea Dweller that some like so much. Some would love it, especially those who actually do hate that Cyclops, and some would find it a little bit hard to read. And it is a little bit hard to read actually, but it gives a little more symmetry to the dial, let's be honest. We've got a flat sapphire crystal with no anti-reflective coating that I can see. You've got a ceramic bezel insert on your typical modern Rolex Submariner fashion, and the good point about this bezel insert is that the lume pip is raised, contrary to what most homage watches do. They just do a flat one, so this is a good addition. I'm going to talk to you about the case of the watch, and for that I wanted to bring in the Saint Martin. The Saint Martin is totally homaging the Hulk, so the 116610 reference with what is called the maxi case, with those very thick lugs. However, if you check the Tissel, you can see that the lugs are a bit thinner, much like what you have on the 126610 Submariner. And see what I told you about the lume pips? Much more raised on the Tissel than on the Saint Martin, which is pretty much flat. From the initial burst, already Rolex and Saint Martin pulling ahead. Strangely, the Tissel seems to have less lume on the bottom indices. So around 10 minutes in, all the three watches are still very legible. However, the Rolex and the Saint Martin just pull ahead. Still, Tissel has nothing to be ashamed of on the lume department. The brushing on top of logs and on the bracelet of the watch is very well done, pretty much on par with what you get on Saint Martin, and the polishing on the flanks of the watch and of the bracelet links is also very well done. No complaints from me here. But it's what it's inside this watch that might interest and give it an edge over some of its competition. It's the fact that you've got a Miura 9015 in here. And as you might know, the 9015 is a movement that is very well loved by watch enthusiasts because it's a Japanese movement made by Citizen. It's a 4 Hz movement, so the second hand ticks 8 times per second, giving it that nice sweep that you find on the Rolex. Most of the competition has either the PT5000, which is a 4 Hz as well, but it's a clone of the 2824, or the Sellita's SW200. But let's see how this movement fares here. Excellent readings from this movement, +2, quite amazing. A pretty generous amplitude, no bit error, very, very good movement, deserves all the praise it gets. And in order to stay relevant, this watch has another trick up its sleeve. The bracelet might be very well done and held together with screws. The clasp is in typical Rolex fashion with all solid elements, and it does have a version of the Easy Link. Let's see how this one performs compared to Rolex's. The clicking is secure and reassuring. Yeah, but when you slide, it slides pretty good, but there's a metallic feeling there of metal rubbing against metal that is not very reassuring. Quite sadly, it doesn't mean that it's badly made. It will hold and it does its job very good. Once you click it back, it clicks well into position compared to other much cheaper ones that will just roll around. It is very well done, but it doesn't feel very good when you're using it. Still, it serves its purpose perfectly. Of course, it is not fair to compare, but here is a Rolex. Yeah, when you slide it, the sliding is perfect, smooth. It's like brushing rubber against rubber and not metal against metal. I don't know how they actually manage that. The Tissel may have many tricks up its sleeve, but one advantage it does not have is price. The Saint Martin with the NH35 movement can be had for as low as $200. For the Tissel, you're looking at about 330 euros. That is a chunk more. Is it justifiable? Well, the biggest argument would be that Miura movement. Is it enough to justify the price difference? Only you can tell. Thank you so much for having watched the video. I'm going to be leaving links to the Saint Martin and of course to the Tissel as well on Tissel's own website. And even to the Rolex, I'm going to be leaving links to Cronos, who have generously lent these beautiful Rolex to the channel. And you can go and check them out. And if you've got the cash for it, maybe snatch one of these beautiful timepieces. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you very soon. Goodbye.